Welcome everybody into another post-game reaction. And today, Lions fall to the Minnesota Vikings 27-24. 1-2 now in the division, which isn't great. Right? That's probably the biggest takeaway from this as a whole is that we're now 1-2 in the division. Got to get that right, of course. Good thing is Green Bay lost today, so that's fantastic. Obviously, I didn't see any of the game, but I'm glad they lost. Chicago got the win, so the division got a lot tighter today, I would say, across the board with this Lions loss. The game that they were pretty heavily favored at home, one that I thought we'll get into all of that. Honestly, before we get into all of that, real quick, I found this video and I think it's worth showing. This is actually a little inside look at the Lions today. And I think this is a fantastic video to really break down what we saw today. Just a really good look from a perspective that we haven't seen. So I just want to react to this real quick. This is a little shot of the Lions. It actually kind of puts together how the game went as a whole right here. So you can see this was this is basically how the game went. This is what it looked like. This is what the Lions looked like today. They looked like that. They looked like that kid throwing the ball backwards, okay? That was a little inside look at the Lions today. This was weird. It was messy. It was ugly. A lot of mistakes, penalties, drops, missed throws, horrible pass protection, pickups. Just a lot of like, what in the world is going on here? And they still gave themselves a chance in this game. I thought even some weird decision making. They gave themselves a chance, and they didn't come through at the end. They didn't get the stop. Um, I'm not gonna say they took too long offensively on that last drive because it's kind of where you were at time wise, but they didn't get the stop defensively. They had a blocked field goal that got stalled out. It's just some ugliness offensively when they got down there. So there's a lot of things to talk about, but I'm going to start here first because this is by far my biggest takeaway, and we really do talk about this in some regards every single week, but especially this game, it was so noticeable how poor the first down offense was. Like that was a disaster. It's going to be a lot of talk about the third down and that specifically. And I got to believe the stats are not good on that, but setting ourselves up very poorly. So the Lions were 5 of 17 on third, not good. Minnesota's 4 of 12, so they weren't great either, but we were worse. And then 3 of 3 on third down. So that's like what, 8 of 20? It's not good, right? It's definitely below average, 40%. But it was the fact that we kept putting ourselves in really bad positions, very bad positions. What we're doing on first down. Like let me make that point clear. Just go through the first half and look at the drives where we didn't score. The second drive of the game on first down, a 2-yard run, right? The next drive after that, which turned into a punt. First down, it was a sack -6. Now, we did have a 4-yard run before we ended up having to punt. Again, we gave up another sack on a third and manageable. You go to your next drive, which was a punt, a negative 2-yard run on first down. And then you go to your next drive, and this was the one right before half after the interception, an incomplete pass where Goff just missed it to Khalif Raymond Lowe. That's not good enough. The Lions were just really bad on first down, and I think the conversation during the game of they don't have a rhythm offensively, it starts there. They didn't have something that they could lean on this game. Nothing felt consistent. Nothing felt like, well, we'll get to this and we'll be good to go. And I think it really does. It always will. And I think Dan will talk about this. It always starts with the run game. And Lions didn't run the ball well in this game at all. They were pretty terrible rushing the football in this game. And because they couldn't get that going, that wasn't something that they could lean on in this game. Now they had flashes, and honestly, their biggest flash was a fumble. And here was the thing coming into this game, and this is one specific that I pointed out in the preview. I knew Minnesota was going to create negatives against our run game. Like that was clear. We're young at guard. We've had issues already this season, inconsistencies where we just had ugly reps. Even though I didn't seemingly notice that as much in this game, if I'm being honest with you, it didn't feel like one, we created nearly enough consistent movement. There could be some questions about the run scheme implemented and what we tried to do rushing the football. I think there could be questions about that. But you also knew just because of how they play, the way that they'll blitz to play the run defensively, the way that they attack gaps and they penetrate upfield, you knew there was going to be negatives created. But the flip side is there was really no positives created. There was no explosive runs. I mean, we beat Minnesota in Minnesota, and I remember we were down 10-0, and Gibbs breaks it from midfield, scores a touchdown. We didn't have that moment. And maybe that moment was on third down and 12 when we pitch it out to Monty, which was a nice play setup, and he fumbles the football on what would have been a first down, right? And maybe even a lot more after that. We didn't have any explosives in the run game to offset, which made it really struggle for us to create explosives in the game just in general. We had a few early passing the football, but that's where it all came from. We had no explosives in the run game at all in this game. Our longest run was 11 yards by David Montgomery. So there's that element, and it just didn't feel like we were creating consistent movement up front. And again, some of that is the aggressive style that I think they play. I also just don't think we were creating the movement that we needed to. I don't know how many plays were like it just weren't we weren't moving guys around constantly in this game. And we saw flashes of it, right? We saw the downhill run to score the touchdown, but not having that to lean on, 20 carries for 65 yards. It's not who the Lions are. And we will say as a side note, hopefully Christian Mahogany's okay. I know he got banged up, got taken off on the cart. Looks like an ankle there. You also have Taylor Decker, who's banged up, came back into the game. So I think he's going to be okay. Who knows? Tate Ratledge came out, then came back in. KO'd stepped in. So one thing that I will say as a completely off topic, just side note, right? Something that I just want to point out there. It is going to be worthwhile, I think, potentially making a call to Kevin Zeitler, making a call to Tennessee and just seeing what it cost. Because if this is significant with Mahogany, not really having an update on Miles Frazier, I don't think the Lions maybe will, but I think it would be worth at least making some calls and just seeing what's out there and considering it. And I would specifically think for Zeitler. I don't know how many other guys you would do that for, JPJ, things like that, but really him, just because he's familiar, he'd step right in. You'd have to move Tate, which would kind of stink. You'd have to put him at left guard. But ultimately, that's something I think that's got to be on the table immediately after this game if it's very serious with Mahogany, because if there's one thing for sure we have to get right offensively with this offensive line, and what seemed like so much of an issue, maybe even more so, like I didn't feel like the interior was getting beat up constantly in pass pro. Now, I could be wrong when I watch it back, but it didn't feel like that. But you saw so many breakdowns, it felt like, up front, and you knew this was an aggressive defense. They're tough to deal with, right? There's a reason you have to be efficient on early downs. You can't get in these spots where they're just bringing everybody. But the inconsistencies with picking up assignments, that's something the Lions are going to have to address, and I'm sure they're going to focus on it a ton this week in practice. And obviously, this is a pretty unique team from that perspective, but also that's where Zeitler could help you, I believe, because at very least, he's going to come in, he's going to know what you're looking for up front, and he does help communication-wise. He's always been very sound in that area. So just a quick side note, thought I would throw that in as something that's worth bringing up. Flip side, we didn't stop the run that well. Aaron Jones, 9 carries, 78 yards. Now, he had a 31-yard rush in there, but it's not great. And I think one of those maybe was like a backwards pass. So I think that racked up the yards. But Mason, 3.6 a pop. Like, overall, we just didn't feel like we were great against the run in this game. Just not great. None of negatives, too many positives, too much movement. Now, I will say they were coming in with a healthy old line, healthier. Both of their tackles were back, and I felt that was going to make a huge difference. Like the Minnesota team that we had seen previous weeks was going to look a lot different when their tackles got healthy. Because that's what the biggest takeaway for me was with Minnesota is like, hey, they've lost some games. But, dude, if you look at it, Wentz is under duress immediately. There's no run game to lean on at all. If you remember Minnesota, when they got really good last year, man, they were leaning on a run game. They ran it 29 times today. 19 between the two backs. McCarthy took off for 9, but that's some scrambles. But 19 between the two backs. Good thing is he didn't really have much success scrambling outside of the one touchdown, I guess. But ultimately, like, that's an area where for the that's an area where for the Lions, like, that's something that Minnesota, when they do that well, they do well as a team, and they got back to that. So foundationally, they were better in that area than we were. They had something that they could lean on, which is a big problem. And again, a lot of it is first down efficiency for them was there because they could lean on it. We had no first down efficiency. None. It was a disaster. And some of it was putting ourselves in that position. Some of it was dumb pre-snap penalties, a lot of penalties. And then some of it also was just a failure to execute, a failure for a player to step up and make a dang play. There was plenty of that in this game. So I kind of want to really walk through this one and through the notes that I had because there's so, yeah, and St. Brown. So hopefully St. Brown's okay too. He came back in, so that's good. But there's a lot of things to go through here. So let's walk through this that we can really recap it and go through what really took place in this game. That way I don't have to try to go off of memory here because there was a lot of messiness and I tried to capture most of it. So offensively, we came out, we started well, right? We started well. We got into some good checks offensively. The fact that they were able to go down and score a touchdown on that first drive, I thought that 4th down and 4 to have an answer for a 2-deep coverage to hit the seam to the port, I thought that was really good preparation. That looked really sound. I thought that was really good to be prepared to have that beater for that coverage when they want to show man, they bail out into that. That was a huge play. That gave me a lot of optimism. Obviously, it fell off a cliff after that, but immediately it was like, this is really nice. And that first drive where we scored, first down was better. Like there you go, right? It was much better, right? You started with an out route to Sam Laporta, bam, first down. And you did that, you attacked their flats, right, where they're kind of limited underneath. So Laporta got involved early. He had like 60 yards on the first drive. You had a screen that was positive. Laporta, tight end screen, 10 yards. You run screens on both sides. You had a 10-yard screen, bam. Now, 6-yard run right after that. So now all of a sudden, it's 2nd down and 4. So even when you throw an incomplete pass due to some pressure, it's 3rd down and 4. Now, again, we ended up throwing that away. We had to go for it on 4th down. We scored a touchdown. But at very least, that drive showed you that, hey, this is why we have to be positive on first down. Also, pass protection pickups. I will give Gibbs a lot of credit. After last week where Dave Montgomery was not good, he just wasn't good at picking up in pass pro, Gibbs stepped in and did what he could. Now, I didn't think he was bad in this game. Obviously, it's hard. And I do think one of the biggest critiques that my dad had during the game, which I think is very fair, is you have to start looking at, especially against this team when you see them again, maybe having another option for someone next to Goff. Because I think when you like, they're going to get a free backer because that's how you're setting your protection. So you're going to get that every play. So the flip side is maybe don't put your running back there to ask him to pick it up because that's what he's doing. It's a reason I thought this would be a Dave Montgomery game, right? I took his over in the props. He didn't hit that because we couldn't run at all. But I took Monty because I thought, okay, this is a Monty game. And as a passing, when you're passing the football, you're just not going to get him out there on routes because he's always having to stay in the block. And I think part of Minnesota's game plan too could have been really. I thought they would crank it up. I thought they'd blitz a lot in this game because it just made sense. You watch them play Philly, they didn't blitz at all, and it's like this looks awful. They need to blitz. They got to get after you. That's who they are, and they did. But your running back's gonna have to stay in the block based on how we're setting it. So maybe you put someone else in there, and I'm not saying that maybe you is a clear, obvious answer for who that is, but whether that's Brock Wright or somebody, and you figure out like, okay, is there a better option? If we know we're just leaving you in the pass pro, is there just a better option than this? Right. Obviously, you also kind of lose the threat of rushing, but I mean, to be honest, we didn't run any of the third down. So, like, why not even, you got to think about it. It's something to think about, I think, going forward. Now, defensively, this is where things got messy because it was everywhere. Block field goal, big kick return allowed. Shoot, we gave up a touchdown that was called back to a hold. Now, I think there was a couple holds on that one. But ultimately, like special teams, man, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. And kick return sends them across the 50 immediately. They come out running the ball well, which we knew their staple was outside zone. Again, I give them credit. I think their offensive line, especially in the interior, they outperformed what I would have expected by a mile, it felt like, in this game. They outperformed. I thought we were pretty aggressive defensively watching it live, especially in coverage and what we were doing. And I thought that was a good game plan. I think it was fine. Honestly, I didn't feel horrible about our defense outside of the fact that I just think that we got moved around too much on the front. That was the biggest issue. Secondary, I'm actually okay with how the secondary played. I'm pretty okay with it. I thought they gave us a chance. Obviously, the Mollett one stinks at the end of the game. That would give a shot at the end there. But even there, you contested it. I'm not too mad with that. But up front, 11 yards outside zone. You did get a run stuff after that. Then you had a deep shot that was really good ball by JJ. Terrion was in a good spot. That's incomplete. And then it's third down and long. And unfortunately, this has kind of been a staple of the Lions defense really early this season. Now they kind of fixed that against Tampa, it felt like, but then they come out here and they give up a big first down, like a 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 10. They just run a quick screen, right? They run a screen. We put everybody in the box. We bring cover 0. We bring it. Maybe that's something too. Lions have to look at is, hey man, can we bail out like other teams do when he checks? Can we get out of that? Because that's what Minnesota's doing, right? They're getting up there. They're seeing that we got enough smart players. We got enough vets here where can we communicate it out where it's like, hey man, we were going to send it. He's checking clearly to a beater for this. So can we check back out of it and get to a bail? I'm not saying they don't have that in their playbook, but it definitely is something that I think is worth looking at, especially taking from Minnesota. It's like, yo, at least in third down spots, can we at least have maybe a secondary call where it's like, hey, we don't like this. Let's get out of it. Because there they just got into a beater and it was a beater and they made it a first down. It's something to think about. And then they scored the touchdown. And honestly, man, the touchdown they scored, bro, like again, not overly mad at coverage. Not really. I mean, this is another great catch. Amik was contested. He just put over his shoulder. JJ made the play. There were some really good plays. Obviously, Terrion had a big pick, had some big pass play. I thought Terrion played really well, to be honest with you. I can't remember much that he didn't do well in this game. So not overly mad about that. Mollett got beat a couple times. Kind of expected, right? But for the most part, I wasn't overly upset. I see you, Lion King, in the building. Shout the Lion King, Nell. I think it's Nell. Jalen Young. I see you, Jalen Young. What is that? Is that a rooster? What is your picture here? Okay, I don't know what that spells, but I see y'all. All right, go back to the offense, and again, here's where the problems start having. No success on first down. And they were using that 12 personnel, which I did like, to see how the defense was going to react to it. Were they going to go soft? Were they going to play base? I feel like they came out, they gave us some nickel looks against 12. And again, just not finding efficiency running the football. We ran it behind the left side a lot, which I'll have to watch back. Maybe they were trying to stay away from something, or maybe that's where the looks were. But ultimately, it just felt like we weren't finding any success there. The one thing I will say immediately, I would have liked to see more of the toss stretch runs, right? We did some stretching. We did a few tosses, and honestly, they were pretty successful outside the one at the end where Gibbs got like a yard. I would have looked to more of that in this game, especially when you're getting those guys to blitz to stop the run and getting upfield, just because I think that it limits their scrape. And if you can just get out there, you can get forward. And I thought we wrinkled it on the first drive and we hit to Monty and it was successful. I wish we would have done that more, I feel like. And honestly, even the straight downhill runs, I mean, we didn't have as much success there as I would have expected. We had blown block there. We split the double team and then we lost a yard or two. But that's another area. I thought we'd create movement there. I thought it'd be a Monty game because of that. I thought we'd create movement downhill. And I don't think we did consistently in this game, but maybe there's a couple things that like less of the outside zone rushing that I would have liked to see maybe just change in this game, right? A little bit more of kind of what LA did where it was just straight downhill. in this game. So something to kind of keep an eye on. And then, of course, pre-snap penalties, right? Because now you have a screen that you run to Gibbs. That loses 2 yards. I don't have an issue with it. The first drive, the screens were effective. You come back out, you run a screen, and Sewell just doesn't get out there in time. Lose 2 yards on the play. You try to run to Gibbs. It's kind of something we ran last year, so we just kind of picked it up and carried it from last year. And then on third down in 10, you got a false start. You can't have that. Like at home, false starts are crazy. And there was a stretch there where we just had a lot of just confusion offensively. And you're like, what is happening? Why do we have 2 guys shifting at the same time or motioning at the same time? We can't do that, right? And that's not a play. It's just like, what are we doing? We're not on the same page. You're at home. There should be no noise being an issue at this point. And you have way too many of these issues. Way too many. And have a false start on third down and 10 is crazy. And again, you set up a screen. You end up losing 2 yards on that one. But you're 3rd and 15. That's not you can't play that game against these guys. So we get back to the defensive side. Again, just too much success rushing the football. A 6-yard run, a 14-yard run, a 5-yard run. I mean, that's just too much. I mean, that's a counter pull goes for 14. Now, the 6-yard completion, sorry, that was a check down. But then a 5-yard run on the cutback. I think what they were doing was smart. They seem to lean pretty heavy on that right side of the offensive line, where I thought they'd lean more left. They seem to lean on the Brian O'Neill side and allowing that backside to be the cutoff side or a cutback side, where it's like, hey, we're going to get off of Christian Darrisaw. We're going to run behind him through these cutbacks for Aaron Jones. And it seemed like it was a good plan. It seemed like it worked pretty well. I think that's what they leaned into a bit there, in this game. And again, coverage was fine. You end up holding to a 1-yard run. The deep corner route was incomplete, and they end up scoring the touchdown on a broken play, which I think was a 3rd down too, where it was essentially the receiver just stopped. I don't know who Thomas Harper was covering on this play. We went cover 3 at like the 8, which I'm going to say this. It's not that it couldn't have worked here because if he finds what it does. We were doing this in the preseason. I don't like it. I don't like cover 3 inside the 10 or the 15. Like, I just don't like it. I don't think it's the coverage you run in those spots. I hate it because you can overwhelm a safety. You can overload a side. I just don't like it in the spot. I don't think you should call that often, but regardless, we called it there and we gave the touchdown. That's one. If you want to talk about play calling issues, I didn't like that. I don't like running the cover 3 down there. I don't think it's a smart play call in those spots. And that was just turned into a broken play, which scored a touchdown. I just don't like that when you're that close to the end zone. I don't think that's a smart schematic decision. Then offensively, you're going back to that 12 personnel. You give up a sack on first down. I don't remember what all of them were. Again, I know running back was a little inconsistent. They settled in a little more as the game went on. A lot of it just felt like communication breakdowns up front. Who had who. It's just you can't have that on first down. It got to the point where it was like, well, shoot, do we just get out of going under center because we're just not picking these up cleanly offensively? The toss stretch run, 7 yards. Like we should have used that more, I think. And honestly, you got out of this bad situation. You had the big play. You ran that big dagger route to St. Brown. He picks up a 3rd down and 9. They only brought 4 on the play, so we had time and it worked. Which, again, from Minnesota's perspective, I think that's why they stopped doing it. Made no sense to do that. Don't bring a 4-man rush. It's like that's not who you are. You're a blitzing team, and when they do that, we found success. Which is why it's going to be an emphasis, I'm sure, on hey man, we got to be cleaner. We just got to be cleaner because there's going to be answers. You just have to be able to get to them. And it's an important note because last week we saw this to JMO, right? Everybody was talking about, oh, he's not getting targets. Dude, you got to give him a chance to get there. We ran like a corner route last week to Jamison Williams. We had a vertical run it off. We flooded one side of the field on the 3rd down. He's wide open. It's going to be there, but you can't get it off because you have a breakdown in pass pro. And I think last week it was a blown block by David Montgomery. But again, that's where it's always going to start. And in this case, we did pick it up because they only brought 4 and we picked it up. Then we go to a 4-yard run. We're going outside zone, but we're going lead. We're putting fullback in. I like that. I like the lead blocker. I think that was pretty effective. Again, I think we should have created more movement than we did. And I think maybe the outside zone should have been scrapped a little bit sooner because it just wasn't working, if I'm being honest with you. It didn't feel like it was, but 4 yards there. And then again, an incomplete pass to Laporta. It's a low pass. And then, you get a blown block up front between Graham Glasgow and Tate Ratledge. You get sacked. They're stunting. They're looping around. They're getting wide. You're in a 3rd down and 6, which isn't a good spot to be in. So that's just messy. Let's go back to the defensive side because the defense did give us a chance. I give it credit. They gave us a chance in this game. And a 1-yard run, we came out at a heavy defense. We had pinned them back inside their own 10. Lions came out there very heavy personnel. They were set to stop the run. I still do like them using Al-Quadi Muhammad on 2nd down at D tackle, but it is something to be aware. I got to believe teams are going to start pointing him out and be like, we're going directly at him because he got blown off the ball. It's good for pass rush, but man, he got blown off the ball there. And then you got a sack. Derek Barnes got in there. Aiden Hutchinson kind of misses Zach. Hutchinson was all over him, got a lot of pressure, had a really big tip pass in this game where they ran a drag or they ran like a mesh play and Barnes got tipped or not tipped. He got bumped off and it was like, oh, JJ could run away from this. But he makes a big play. Hutch was big. Hutch was really big in this game. I'm glad that he showed up the way that he did, at least as a pass rusher. He showed up. Maybe he didn't as much as on the run play. I didn't feel him as much, but maybe just staying away from him. But you definitely felt him as a pass rusher. That's a positive. And then they checked it down underneath on the third and long. We got off the field. So again, defense did their job. We pinned them back. You play that game for that reason. It's also part of the reason why at the end of the game where I'm frustrated. I'm like, dude, why don't you go on side there? You're down by 3. If field goal doesn't beat you, go on side. Give yourself 2 shots of getting off the field, essentially. If you on side or 3 and out, not just a 3 and out. But part of me can also understand why he made that decision, saying, hey, our defense is getting us out of some tough spots. And they had us in a 3rd and 5. They had to look to get us off the field. Now, the run defense wasn't good enough in this game, but they had a chance to get off. So while I don't like it, that's not what my decision would have been. I can at least understand it. I can understand it maybe a little bit. Yeah, it looks like Mahogany is going to be down for a while. I mean, I hope not. Like I said, we jumped that off with saying, like, I would make calls to Tennessee and just see what the price is for Kevin Zeitler, like, immediately. Unless Miles Frazier is close, like, that's a call I'm making. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. You have KO'd, right? They'll go that route, but or Tristan Colon. I like Colon too. But that's a call I'm making. And it's mainly for this. It's pass pro pickups. Like, we just have to be cleaner. So I'm making that call. That'd be one I'd jump on very quickly there. But hopefully he's okay. And then offensively, we end up scoring. And this was the drive. This was the best drive, I think, maybe the best drive from Jared Goff in this game. I mean, the first one was good too, but he did a nice job of getting us into the right look. All right. This was very important because coming into this game, it was going to be important. Like, you have to get us into the right play. In this drive, he did. I thought a lot of it. And we got some quicker things going, right? You had the quick play action curl route to Laporta, the outside zone to Monty. You had a 1-yard run downhill, a 2-yard toss to Monty. Just not enough success there. Like, straight up at some point, you got to push dudes around a bit. We didn't do that. Now, again, I could have some things that I watch back. I'm like, schematically, I don't like it. But, dude, you got to move some guys. We just weren't moving dudes enough in this game. Credit to Minnesota. We weren't doing it enough. You can't have that many inconsistent. You just can't. You got to be better on first down. We have to find something to lean in on first down. And we don't want to be a team that every first down we're passing, especially against these guys. But just in general, they don't want to be that. Well, you got to create some movement then. Someone's got to start moving people around a bit in this game. And again, like I said at the beginning, we didn't have an explosive to offset some of the negatives either in this game. But either way, he still got out of a bad spot, right? Goff slips the sack, finds Monty. Monty ends up picking up a nice gain. That was huge. You hit slant. You hit the slant to Amon-Ra St. Brown where you really sold the run. Like, that was a smart. Like, that was a smart little play call. I like that. We've seen things like that. You end up losing to. You run the out and up to Saint. That was nifty too. I like that. Like, all these things kind of remind me of the old Lions. And then you ended up punching it in with, like, hey, let's just get downhill. Let's go behind Skipper. I like that. That was good. And I thought that was such a big drive because a few of those times, like, we got into the right looks offensively, and Goff kind of kept it alive by escaping and finding David Montgomery. When he finally got to leak out, because he never really does, because he was constantly being set in their block, which, again, from Minnesota's perspective, very smart. Like, bring that linebacker every time, right? They needed to blitz. They did. They were successful. And taking our running backs out of the pass game. They essentially took them out. So, again, it's something to consider, especially when you play Minnesota again, putting somebody else back there that's not a running back. Someone that you just love in pass pro, and it's like, hey, I don't care if he's a threat. It probably is going to come in the form of a tight end. I mean, maybe that is Brock Wright. I kind of like that idea. But is that better than Monty? Maybe not. But it's something to look at. And then defensively, again, we got off the field. We forced the field goal. This was the drive that ended by Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell had an amazing sack. Bro ran right through the running back. A couple of runs, a run stop in here, which was nice. Lee McNeil got upfield. This is when we started to get some push. They tried to stretch it out. We got upfield a little bit. We did a nice job. Hutch got some pressure, forced it underneath. Again, we made them work if they weren't dominating on the ground game. And this was a good drive for that, I would say, right? They had the little screen pass. They hit on a little swing route. That picked up the big chunk, which, again, that was on the 3rd down. So, like, that's the second time now. That's the second time. And this one, I think they were manned up, and it was like we had to pass off the branch. The branch was out there late. That's the second time. They hit the big route on Amik Robertson. You're going to give up a couple of those. But they were still playing aggressive outside of that. So I was pretty pleased with how that went. Like, you knew that was going to be a tough matchup regardless. But I was pretty pleased with how it went. They were more aggressive than I would want it to be. They were aggressive as I would have wanted to be, but they were, but they actually did it, and I didn't actually think they were going to be that aggressive. So, you had a big sack. You still hold them to a field goal. And then again, offensively, it's just negative 2-yard run. Like, what are we doing, man? And we're going behind that left side of the O-line. Hey, man, look, even on top of that, a lot of these, and I got to be honest, like, hey, Mahogany's on that left side. We couldn't run behind that left side at all. It didn't feel like at all we could run behind a negative 2-yard run. Hargrave blows it up. Hey, I mean, shoot, what are we doing? I don't know why we went behind the left side so much, but, man, we couldn't run the ball at all. And we got ourselves back into it. We hit Say, it was a really good find underneath, and then they bring zero coverage and the pass gets batted. We've seen that before, so I mean, you would like it to be cleaner, right? Just to have some answers there, but we've seen that before, so I'll keep it moving for now. Defensively, again, you did a good job, right? You got a interception right before half. You kept them from getting points after a drive that was essentially everything working against you. That entire drive before half of Minnesota was basically give them points. It was, oh, here's a flag, right? This was a weird, and I think this was the flag on Aiden Hutchinson, followed by the flag on Jack Campbell for landing and putting his weight on the quarterback. Then we had an illegal contact on Amik Robertson on a third down. Like, this was a drive where it was like, okay, we're going to give up points. But Hutch gets a key tip. We get pressure on a boot play. Terrion gets a pick on a pass that was behind him. Like, that was a heck of a stop by the defense. And then offensively, we didn't do anything with it. We had plenty of time, 47 seconds, 3 timeouts. And this was a mistake. And this is where I was saying some of it's schematic driven. I think most of the schematic issue I have watching it live was the run scheme, leaning so much on the left side that seemingly wasn't creating any movement, and even some of the run types we were doing, but also obviously the pass pro stuff too. But really for me, and maybe not putting somebody else at running back, really for me, it has to be the fact that we didn't make plays on first down. And sometimes it's that. You got to push guys off the line of scrimmage a little bit. Somewhere we have to move some dudes off the line of scrimmage. Missing a pass to Khalif Raymond here on the drag. That sets us up. No, you miss it. Dropping a pass on first down. Dumb penalties, especially in the second half to start to pile up. Somebody's got to make a play. At least just do your job. And this is one where he misses the pass to Khalif. It's wide open. So then we come back. We're like, all right, let's run a screenplay. And it looked like it was going to set up. Khalif Raymond comes in, bam. Kind of cracks the edge rusher, then gets out. Van Ginkel stands back up. I don't even know how this happened. I didn't see this again. Somehow we ran a screen where the dude's on the ground and we throw it to him and he gets back up, makes a tackle. I don't know how that happens. But he does. He gets back up, makes tackles. Like, all right, that play just took way too long to develop. And then you're into this again, 3rd and 12. It's like, bro, we should not be here. If we just we connect on the drag, it's open. There's nothing else I can do for you. I mean, you got to hand him the foot. Like, this dumb things like this. Now you're in the 3rd and 12, and they end up bringing cover 0. They checked in too defensively, and we threw an incomplete pass here. This is one where Goff just kind of had to rush it and throw it over the middle of the field. And look, it's a handful to deal with. Like, it is a lot to deal with, especially as they get healthier, they get Van Ginkel. But the best way to beat that is you cannot be in that spot. It's the best way to attack it is don't be in that position. And we were in that position, especially with young guards. You can't live there. We live there because of our own doing. It's like we want to get out of some of these, but bro, you got to be better on early downs where you can control a lot of this. And these are things that you do every day. We expect these things of these guys, and they're not doing it. That's why this game was so messy. If it felt rusty. Everybody used that term, but it felt rusty coming off a bye week. From that perspective, it felt rusty, right? And then they have a little success rushing the football. We jump off sides coming out of half. But again, coverage did their thing. They took the big shot. Brian Branch is in a good spot on Addison. It was a good zone read by JJ. And then ultimately we end up getting off the field where, Jack Campbell, Barnes, they drop out. It was a nice little pressure package. I like that. We got some cool pressure packages. Both backers, A gap, B gap, dropping out. Alex gets some pressure. Jack Campbell's been an awesome blitzer. I think that's been the biggest development for him this season is he's become a very legitimate blitzing linebacker. He was a very good blitzer. Again, this game, very impactful in that. Get off the field. Offense gets back out there. Stretch run for 2 yards. Left side of the old line. Why are we not creating movement? Maybe we should be running to the right side, but dang, we got to move somebody, man. I mean, move somebody, bro. And look, I don't think the stretch runs are a bad scheme. I like the tosses because I think they hit quicker. And I like that because, like, again, if you're going to bring your linebacker, if your linebacker has to play the A gap and he's attacking upfield and he's stretching, you get away from them, they can't scrape. Cool. I like tosses because it hits fast and it really takes those guys out of the play. But the flip side is you have to move people. If you can't move anybody, it doesn't matter. So it should be there, but it's a lot of isolated. Hey, you got to move, and they're playing upfield. If you're playing on your back, on your heels, you're going nowhere off the line. And that's what it felt like all game. Weren't moving anybody. And maybe we should have did more of the stuff that we did earlier this year with Morton, where he would put Penei Sewell on the left side. It's like we're running behind that. Maybe you should have got to that a few times. Maybe that could have, I don't know. Maybe that could have brought the spark to the run game. It would have been something to consider. Because all of a sudden, now you're in second down. Goff doesn't throw the best ball on an in-breaker, but it's catchable. Saint drops it. It's like, dude, hey, at some point, bro, we got to help ourselves. We can look for all these outside, like, man, we need a miracle play call here. Like, there's no magic play call, bro. Catch the ball. Throw it a little bit better. He's open. What are we doing? It's just like, that's a first down. Nope, now it's 3rd and 10. Like, We just didn't execute on anything that we normally, majority of the time, would. And it didn't feel like that. Now all of a sudden it's like, all right, hey, 3rd down and 8. So you run a screen to Gibbs. Gibbs catches it, bumps it to his own guy, slows it down. You looks like you have a look. No, you don't, because you only get 6 yards because he got slowed down by bumping into his own guy. I don't even know what happened there, but it happened. And that's the same thing as the Monty play. You're in the 3rd and 12. That's as good as it gets. The pin pull is as good as the look gets. Bro, fumbles. Like, man, just walking through this is crazy. We're not even talking about the penalties yet. It's crazy. Oh, my goodness, man. It's crazy. Some of this is crazy. And, I mean, I'll go there. I'll go there right now. You have, on 1st down, you throw the ball away. You went jumbo package to throw it. I don't know that I understand this one completely. I guess I don't know what this was. I think that if this is a sell run, or maybe it got different personnel to field, because like what we talked about earlier, when you were going 12 personnel, you were only getting, and this was 3rd quarter. So maybe you were only getting, that nickel look. So you're like, all right, let's go heavy. That way we can get an extra linebacker so we can simplify that coverage. And that in theory makes sense. So you put the extra lineman out there, throw it, it's incomplete. I don't know what he had in the back end. Clearly nothing. We threw it away. And then now it's 2nd and 10. You just throw that quick swing pass out to Monty. He loses 2. And then, again, you put yourself in a bad spot, but you had to look to get out of it, and Monty fumbles, not disciplined, not holding the ball tight, loses it. And then we go back to the defensive side of the ball. And really, I mean, watching it live, I thought there was maybe even worse defensively. It was just we didn't play the run that well. Like a 7-yard stretch run. They kept doing the cutback to the left side. But that said, though, I think the coverage did a lot of good. And there's really a handful of plays that we just missed, but it wasn't as many, obviously, as the offensive side. I mean, Alex Anzalone, terrible angle to the ball, lost contain. We gave the touchdown on the scramble. But before that, yeah, you lose some, right? You had Alec Addison kind of got on the outside shoulder there of Terran Arnold. He brought 6. You were aggressive. And now some of this could be like question, like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have been as aggressive. Like we took a lot of that seemingly from the Tampa Bay game. We carried it over, but I do like it. I think it's better for who we are to play that style. I do like it, and you're going to give up some things with that. But then you get a 2-yard run. You get an incomplete pass because Hutch gets some pressure. Duracell covers it well. We cover well in the back end. That's sound coverage, and you get good coverage again. He takes off, and we lose contain jumping inside. Alex takes a bad angle, and we give up a touchdown. That's just things that can't happen. Offense gets back on the field. And this is really where I'll kind of wrap it up. Get a good kick return. That's the spark you needed. A good kick return. And then you get a sack on 1st down, right? You get a blown block sack. I think it was Penei Sewell who lost immediately. Now you're saying you got to win too. And throw it on 1st down. So you're thinking, okay, we're getting simplified. We'll throw it on first. Now you can't throw it on 1st down. You got to have some sort of efficiency, something you can lean into on 1st down. They hit St. Brown a big over route, which was good. It got him right back into position. Goff made a good throw, moved pretty well in there. And, that set us back up to then hit the flat. We started going up tempo, a little no huddle. That was positive. That worked to kind of slow him down a bit. J-Mo, kind of took the ball off his shoulder, picked up a big 1st down on the play fake. But then again, think about this. False start. Now it's a 2-yard run. Now it's 2nd and 13. Then you have 2 guys moving at the same time. Obviously, Laporta knew right away, like, we can't be doing this. That's a flag. Back him up. Then we get called for a hold on that same play. Back him up. It's like 2nd and 23 at this point. So now you're just trying to get back into the game. Quick slant to Laporta. And again, we still got out of it. Big curl to J-Mo, 1st down. Like, hey, we're back in business. Beats Rodgers. He beat Rodgers at the end of the game, right? And I thought I had J-Mo's props too, because I thought he'd do well, and I think he did. Except for he makes that play, comes back on 1st down, and drops a drag route. Like, I don't think some of this is outside of the run scheme. Some of this isn't overly complex. This is legitimately the definition of being yourself. You make this awesome play. It's like, dude, we were in a really bad spot, but we got out of it. Now I'm going to drop a drag and I'll put us right back in that spot. Like, what are we doing? Like, you can't do that, man, especially when you're playing behind. All right, cool. 2nd down and 10. Great. So now we run it. We get 4 yards. And then on 3rd down and 6, Gibbs was at least stepping in with some authority. But we give up a sack. And that's where you start to quit. Maybe we should have Brock there. But, man, my goodness, bro. We shouldn't have 17 third downs. 17 third downs in 3-4. We have 20 of those. 20? Come on, man. That's crazy. That's crazy. Defensively, did their thing, right? Jack Campbell gets the sack. Hutch kind of touched him and got the sack. Defense, hey, 3 and 8, get us back on the field. Let's go. And we're rolling again. And then we get a field goal blocked. And again, this drive felt very similar. You get them to jump off side. This was great. That was like the getting them to jump off sides was as good as it got offensively for us, because that was our detail, taking advantage. We're moving the ball well. And this is when you have an incomplete pass, try to run the mesh. Mahogany gets hurt. Incomplete. Okay, 2nd and 10. Cool. Now let's run it. 1 yard gain. 3rd and 9. Like, bro, we can't do it. Then we get a false start. Okay, now it's 3rd and 14. What play call do we have there? Clearly none. None. We don't have a play call for that. Now we're backed up. Now we're missing. Now we're getting a field goal block. Like, bro, what are we doing, man? Got to find efficiency on first down. Obviously. I don't think some of this was completely unpredictable. Like, yeah, I thought it would be a Monty game. I think it was in theory. We just didn't block as well as I thought we would. I think they blocked a lot, but they ran the ball way better than I would have expected. That was disappointing. Way better. They were healthy on the line, but way better than I would have expected. Aaron Jones did his thing. Coverage was aggressive. I like that. The cover 3 stuff, I was very cool with. That was anticipated. I thought that would be the best coverage for the game. It was good. They were pretty darn good in man, too. I appreciate that. Situation, we gave up a couple of things. We contained pretty darn well for the most part, outside of one scramble that gave up a touchdown. So it's just a key play. So that wasn't. And then offensively, I think the plan, like for the most part, was understandable. Like the screens were understandable. They were effective on the first drive. They weren't after that. The inability to run consistently was concerning. And then just honestly, a lot of it was just like, what are our guys doing? I mean, it's not like we typically don't light up the scoreboard against Minnesota. So scoring 24 against I had 30-24. That was my score. So scoring 24 is, somewhat reasonable, but you left so much out there. You left the field goal out. You left so much out there. It could have been reasonable, but you had, and especially for the fact that you had nothing going on first down. If you passed it, you either blew a block up front, you dropped it, Goff missed it, and if you runned it, you probably gained 2 yards. You got to find it. You got to find something. Find something that you can lean on in those spots. And I think that's been the issue here. We got to find something that we can lean on. So, maybe that's a tweet. Maybe say, hey, we're going to be more of a throwing first down team. We're just who we are at this point because we're not getting as much movement as we typically do. So we have to set up our run a little bit more. We can't play off the run as much. Maybe get a call to Kevin Zeitler, but you got to find something. So with that, Lions fall. Good thing is Packers lost. Bears did win, though. 47-42 is crazy. And we will be back, man. We'll be back this week to prepare for Washington. Really nothing. Well, opportunity to go to first place, yes. Division got tighter, yes. But everything's still in front of these guys. You play Green Bay again. It's got to be cleaner. I think it can't. There's a lot of things I don't think are going to happen again. But, man, Dan Campbell's going to be on these dudes this week. Got to be cleaner. And we got to find a way to have more efficiency around the football. You know what I mean? Got to find a way because we don't have enough of it right now. That's the big key to me. So I'm going to leave it there. I appreciate y'all joining. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Go Lions as always. And I'm out.